Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something very exciting. Well, we're starting on a project of something very exciting. I've decided that I want to try a chapter of all the books on my TBR shelf that I am not too sure whether I am still interested in reading. So, the reason for this is my overall goal for 2024 is to try and read at least 50% of the books that I pick up. I want them to come from my TBR shelf rather than from the library. And that's because there are books that I've had sitting on my shelf for years and years and I just never get to them. In April, if you saw my wrap up, I did pick up quite a few books from my shelves and I DNF'd, I think, most of them. So I feel like I need to sort my life out. And when I say sort my life out, I mean sort my TBR out. So I have taken from my shelves, you may be able to see there are some gaps. Take from my shelves all the books that I'm just not sure about. So there are books that I have that people have passed on to me, that I have had in various book subscriptions I've had in the past, that I might have picked up myself, like second hand. And some of these books, I sit there and I look at them on the shelf and I think, why are you still here? So I need to do something about that. Now, there are more than I was expecting. So I've taken them off my shelf. So guess how many there are. There are 66 books here that I want to try a chapter of. I say try a chapter, it may not take me a full chapter to work out one way or the other whether I want to read them or not. It might take me less pages, which is fine. But I do want to just get rid of the ones that I'm not interested in. And what I'm also hoping to achieve with this is that it will reinvigorate my interest in reading some of these books. So some of them hopefully will stay. Some of them I'm pretty sure will be unhauled. I don't know how long this is going to take, because in my mind, I'm filming this on the Saturday for bank holiday weekend, so I'm off work on Monday. I'm home alone for 2 days, so I do have some time. I was kind of thinking it might be like a weekend thing, but the 66 books, I mean, it's doable, isn't it? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long this is going to take. As I say, it may not take me a full chapter for some of these to decide whether I want to keep them or not. So, have a guess. How many of these 66 books do you think I'll end up keeping? How many do you think I will unhaul? My guess, I am in a ruthless mood. I'm going to say I'm going to get rid of about 40%. What's 40%? What's 40% of 66? Okay, so, I mean, I have to just use my phone to work it out. So 40% of 66 is 26. So that would be unhauling 26 books and keeping 40. I reckon that maybe sounds about right. So we shall see. I don't exactly know how I'm going to film this, whether I'll do it all and then tell you what I'm keeping or whether I'll have to do it in stages. But what I also want to do at the end is sort of rearrange my shelves a little bit. So, so there is some order to these, but I want there to be a bit more order to them. So hopefully I'll be able to show you at the end what they look like once they're sorted out. So let me know your predictions and I'll speak to you once I've tried some of these books. Hello, it's actually only the next day. And last night I managed to get through 33 of the books that I wanted to try a chapter of. And I haven't needed to try a full chapter of too many of them before being able to make a decision either way, whether I want to keep it on my shelf and reread it or whether I want to get rid. There is one other book that I've decided to add into the mix as well, so there's going to be 67 books in total. So, of the 33 that I have tried so far, I'm going to be keeping 17 and getting rid of 16, which is pretty good going. So I think I said that my prediction was that I was going to probably get rid of maybe 40% of these. I was kind of hoping it was going to be closer to the 50% mark, so this is going well. So I thought I'd talk you through all the ones I'm keeping and then the ones I'm getting rid of those 33, and then I'll go through the second half and do another update. So the ones that I'm keeping are a Matka by Karen Tidbeck. This is a sci-fi novel which opens up with the character who she's journeying to go to, I think, work on a spaceship. It sounds intriguing. This is a Swedish novel. The one thing I have realised is I've got quite a lot of translated stuff on my shelves. Next one I'm keeping is The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gower, which is historical fiction, and I'm interested in that. Next, I am going to be keeping The Discomfort of Evening by Marika Lucas Reinveld. This won International Booker in 2020. It's translated, I think, from, is it Dutch? Dutch. I liked the first chapter. It was just about this family from this young girl's perspective. Loads of people hate this book and people have said to me, like, don't bother. But I really enjoyed the first chapter, so I'm going to read it. A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. So this seems really good. So it's got two timelines, one in Palestine in 1990 and one in Brooklyn in 2008. And there's like a familial link between those two timelines. I think in the present day timeline, the girl that we follow wants to go to college, but her family says she needs to get married. But yeah, the first chapter intrigued me, and yeah, I want to read this. Next we have a crime novel, Girl A by Abigail Dean. I think this was quite popular a few years ago, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be something I wanted to read, but I do. So the first line is a good first line. It says, "You don't know me, but you'll have seen my face." So we are following this girl who is in prison. I'm not entirely sure what she's in prison for, but I like the first person perspective. It intrigues me. I like the writing style, so I'm going to keep that one. The Keeper of Stories by Sally Page. This seems like it's going to be something maybe a little bit more light-hearted, but I imagine it's probably got some sad stuff in as well. So it's about this cleaner who, as it says on the blurb, who doesn't really have a story of her own to tell, so she gathers other people's stories, I think, from the houses that she's cleaning. So I'm going to keep that one. And then we have The Black Book by Orhan Pamuk. And there is another book by him on this pile as well. So I've never read anything by this author. He's from, I want to say he's from Turkey. Have I made that up? Yes, he is from Turkey. So this is translated as well. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature sort of almost 20 years ago. And so I think this one seems like it's got mystery and sort of politics, and yeah, the first chapter, yeah, it was fine. I'm interested in reading this one. The Crying Tree by Nassim Raka. I think I got this from someone at my book club who said she enjoyed it. So it opens up with a young man who is in prison and he's going to be killed by death sentence. And then we go on to, so I did go into the second chapter on this one, and then we go into this family who's, I think, one of their children, their son, had been murdered. So I'm presuming that the boy in the first chapter is the one who was convicted of this murder. So I think we're going to get family secrets and stuff coming out. So I do like the sound of that one. Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse. Hesse? German. So I presume this is translated. This is another translated one. I really wasn't sure. I mean, this cover is awful. And I don't really know what this was about, to be honest. But it's about, let me just find where it starts. Well, it starts with a preface, which I think was the bit that I read. And it tells us that the book contains records left by a man called Steppenwolf, which is how he referred to himself, as in like a wolf of the steppes. And I think it's going to be like his life story, a bit of a, I don't know if he's going to be like a bit of an everyman. It's making me think of something like Stoner by John Williams. I don't know if that's a fair comparison or not, but I am intrigued by that one. Next is some sci-fi, Places in the Darkness by Chris Bruckmeyer. The first chapter sort of, interested me, so we're keeping that. The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. I did see the TV show when that was on, and I wasn't sure if I'd like the book, but the first chapter I really like the writing style of. So it's about Beth, who we know is going to be like a chess prodigy sort of thing. But I really liked the I really like the writing style in this one, so I'm going to keep that. This is the other one by Orhan Pamuk that I have on my TBR, which is My Name is Red. I think this is his most famous or most well-known book. The opening of this one is brilliant, so I need to read it to you. Okay, so chapter 1, the heading for chapter 1 is I am a corpse, and it says, I am nothing but a corpse now, a body at the bottom of a well. Though I drew my last breath long ago and my heart has stopped beating, no one apart from that vile murderer knows what's happened to me. I mean, that sounds brilliant. Definitely going to be reading that. Shelter by Young is about a Korean family, I think, living in the US. The first chapter was sort of like, we're sort of like introduced to the family. I think it's going to be, from what I've heard, quite hard hitting. I think there's something really awful that's going to happen to this family. But based on the first chapter, I liked it. I like the writing style. The Hummingbird by Sandro Veronese, I think is this translated as well. I think from Italian, presumably. Let's check. I'm pretty sure it's translated from Italian. So what interested me about this one was it looks like it's told in sort of different formats. So we've got like little letters, and a section at the front which is like like a transcript of a conversation between people. So I'm interested in this. I don't really know too much about what it's about, but sort of the format of that interested me. Some more sci-fi. The Stars, My Destination by Alfred Bester. This was one that I wasn't like totally grabbed by it, but I was intrigued enough to think I want to give it a go. This is about some man who's managed to survive for 170 days in space after the wreck of his ship, and he's trying to come back to Earth. He has a murderous grudge, so it just sounds like sci-fi and murder combined. What more could you want? Shantytown by Cesar Ira, who is an Argentinian author, so again it's translated. I liked this. I like the writing style of this. This is a very short little book as well. So we're sort of introduced to this neighbourhood where I don't know if he's going to be the main character, I presume he's the main character, is like sort of collecting stuff that's been discarded. I just really liked how it was written, and it intrigued me. And then the final one from this pile that I'm keeping is Peace Talks by Tim Finch. So this I won in a competition. I won the Costa Book of the Year shortlist. I think it was in 2020. So it was the one that was won by The Mermaid of Black Conch. Also on that shortlist was Piranesi, love. This one and another one which I'm going to be getting rid of. But this one is, and I'm not 100% sure this is going to be for me, but it's something that I do want to give a proper go to. So I think it's about this. Is he like a political, what is he? I don't think he's a journalist, a senior diplomat, on sort of, you know, like on his travels, and it was interesting enough for me to want to keep a hold of it. So let me move these into a pile on the floor and let me tell you the ones I'm getting rid of. Okay, so of this first batch, the 16 that I'm going to be unhauling are Paul Temple and the Front Page, Men by Francis Durbridge. This is like a classic crime novel from the 30s, and it just doesn't quite read like my kind of crime fiction. I think it seems like it's more, I don't know what to say, more focused on like the police officers, more of a like police procedural sort of thing. And I think it's going to be like, I think it's like sort of gangs and robberies and stuff. It's just not really my kind of thing. Police at the Funeral by Marjorie Allingham. I have read Marjorie Allingham before. I'm not really got on with her stuff. And oh, there's a, what's that? It's a little family tree. Which is not at the start of the book. But yeah, I just don't really like Marjorie Allingham's writing style. I find it a bit, I don't know, it's just not, it's a bit too much. I find it quite difficult to follow her stories. So yeah, I am getting rid of that one. This is The Wolf and the Watchman by Nicholas Nat Okdag, which I think is another translated one. This is Swedish. Yeah, translated from Swedish. So this, I think, is another crime novel. Well, and historical thriller apparently. So it opens up with this man, and he finds a body. I'm getting the impression it's going to be quite gruesome, and I did have a quick look at the reviews on Storygraph, and I think that is the case, and I suspect it's going to be too far on the disturbing gruesome scale for me, really, so I'm getting rid of that. The Siege of Krishnapur by J.G. Farrell, who won the Booker. I don't know if he won it for this book or not. But this is too like dense for me, and sort of too difficult to read, as in, I don't know, it's definitely just not, it's not my kind of thing, so that can go. A crime novel now, We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker. This was quite popular a few years ago whenever it was published. I mean, it just seemed, again, it's hard to put into words. There are certain styles of crime fiction that I don't really like that much, and this was that. What more can I say? The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. Not my style. To, I don't know. The word I want to say is overwritten, but I don't know if that's a fair. I don't know if that's really what I mean, but I think, I mean, I DNF'd Demon Copperhead as well, like last year. I think Barbara Kingsolver is just not my kind of writer, so that's going. The Fencing Master by Arturo Perez Reverte, which is a Spanish novel. I think this is, I don't know how old this is. When's it from? Oh, it's not that old actually. It's from the 80s. The writing in this one, it was not for me. It was too, yeah, just sort of like, you know how some classics have that sort of detached style of writing? That was sort of how this read to me, so yeah. The Cat Who Went Up the Creek by Lillian Jackson Braun, which I think I picked up in a charity shop a while ago just because of the cat. This I think is like some sort of like crime book, but the first chapter was nothing interesting at all, so that can go. Next up, A Song for the Dark Times by Ian Rankin. I have read a couple of the Rebus books before, and I thought they were okay, but I haven't really read many of them. This opens with a prologue, but the prologue is like really long and has various sections to it, and nothing interesting even happens. We're just like introduced to various police detectives, and like there was just too many pages with nothing interesting happening, so that can go. Next, Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet by Jamie Ford. I think this is quite a well-loved book, but again, the writing style wasn't for me. I think it's the kind of book that I would almost certainly DNF. Sebastian Faulks, Paris Echo. I have not read any Sebastian Faulks. I just, this I think is about two different characters who are find themselves in Paris, but there was nothing about that first chapter that interested me. Country Lovers by Fiona Walker. I'm not entirely sure how this is on my shelf. It's not my usual kind of thing. The first chapter I really just didn't like, not for me. The Slave by Isaac Bashevis Singer. This is a Polish novel translated from Yiddish. And again, the writing style in this, well, when was this written? Let's see. Does it say? So it's from the 60s. Again, this has that sort of like what I think of as like a classic writing style, which is just very wordy, and I feel like a bit too dense for me. It's not my cup of tea really. The final three from this bunch of books. Gate of the Sun by Elias Cowrie. So this is set in Lebanon, and this is translated from Arabic. This is a big book. The font is really small and also quite unpleasant. Like, I just don't like the font of this, and it's just not a pleasant, like a physically pleasant reading experience, so I'm not going to be reading that one. V is for Vengeance by Sue Grafton. I don't know how this made its way onto my shelf. I think I've tried Sue Grafton in the past and DNF'd. This is a crime novel. Again, sort of police procedurally, not really my cup of tea. And then the final one from this bunch of books, this is The Last Dead by Denise Miner. This is one of the ones that I won on that Costa Book of the Year shortlist. I have read a book by Denise Miner before for book club, but wasn't really like that fussed on it. And this first chapter, I think, again, similarly to some of the others, there's a certain sort of style of writing in like police procedurally type stuff that I just find not that interesting and not really for me. So that's the first half of the books done. So it's Sunday today. I might be able to get through the rest of them today, and then I'll let you know the overall figures of how many I'm keeping, how many I'm getting rid of. We shall see. It was very exciting. Like, I'm really pleased I'm doing this. It's going really well. And then I will have to sort of reorganise the ones I'm keeping back onto my bookshelf, and I'll show you how I've done that as well. I think I might do it sort of by genre, probably. So yeah, I'll update you once I've tried some more chapters. So it is later the same day, and I have finished going through all these books. So I've just gone through the final 34 that I wanted to try a chapter of, and I've made some decisions. So I won't tell you the numbers yet, but I'll go through first of all the ones that I'm going to be keeping from this lot, then I'll tell you the ones I'll be getting rid of, then we'll do the numbers, and then I'll reorganise my bookshelf. So the first one I'm keeping is The Ginger Cat Mystery by Robin Forsyth. This was first published in the early 20th century. The main reason I'm keeping this one is that within the first chapter we have 2 deaths. So that's pretty good going. Next is A Fatal Inversion by Barbara Vine, aka Ruth Rendell. I was sort of a little bit on the fence of this, but at the end of the first chapter they do find the bones of what we assume is a dead body. So I'm going to give that one a go. Tom Brown's Body by Gladys Mitchell. I have read Gladys Mitchell before and not got on with her, but this one, it's set in a boys' school, and one of the schoolmasters is murdered, and yeah, the first chapter sort of interested me, so I will give this one a go. We have Waterland by Graham Swift. I've never read anything by Graham Swift before, but in this one as well, at the end of the first chapter, I mean, there's a bit of a theme here, but at the end of the first chapter, someone dies, so I'm keeping that one. Next is Between Beirut and the Moon by Naji Bakhti. So the author is from Lebanon, and this is about a young boy who dreams of becoming an astronaut. I quite like the first chapter. It was told in first person, which I always prefer. And apparently this is quite funny as well. So yeah, I will give this one a go. We have The Anomaly by Michael Rutger. So this is a sort of a thriller horror novel. I wasn't sure if I was going to be keeping this one, but I sort of quite like the start of it. It's about a group of people, one of whom is like a YouTuber, who are going on some mission caving. Yeah, I quite like the start, and I think they're going to find some horrible things down there, so I will give that one a go. And then we have Diary of a Somebody by Brian Bilston. So Brian Bilston is a poet. This is a novel with, I think it's a novel. Yeah, it is a novel. But Brian Bilston is the main character, and at the start of the book he decides he's going to write a poem a day. So it's told in like diary entries, and we have poems, but we also have like prose as well. So it just seemed like a little bit different, so I definitely think this is worth giving a go. And then this pile of ones that we're keeping, we have By the Sea by Abdul Razak Gurna, who I think won the Nobel Prize. The author is from Tanzania. And this is about someone who is seeking refuge in the UK, in London. And I quite like the first chapter. I thought it seemed interesting, so I will give that a go. We have Barcelona Shadows by Mark Pastor. This is translated from Catalan. And this apparently is sort of like a gothic, murdery, detective-y book. And I really like how this book opens. So it says, "Now I'm a voice inside your skull." I mean, that's a good opening line. So yeah, it has sort of quite an intriguing opening few pages in terms of the narrative voice. So I am going to give this one a go at some point. Next is Waist Tide by Shen Kuifan, who is a Chinese author. So this is another translated one. This is like cli-fi, about like eco-terrorists and things. I'm in two minds about this one. What I wasn't sure about was there seemed to be quite a lot of characters mentioned in the first chapter, but I am interested enough to give it a go. Next we have Inverted World by Christopher Priest. This is a sci-fi novel. Apparently it's about a city on rails that has to keep moving because of some gravitational field, but the inhabitants don't know that the city's moving. Anyway, yeah, the first chapter kind of intrigued me. It's told in first person, and it follows this man who is becoming an apprentice as a future surveyor, which I'm not entirely sure what that means. And he's also like betrothed to be married. I don't know. I'm interested enough to give it a go. Next is A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin. This is the first in a series. I don't know how many books are in the series, and I don't know. Tell me if you know. Like, if I read this, will I have to continue with the series to like get any satisfaction from it, or can I just read this book in isolation? But I was interested enough in what I read. It's about this character who goes to work on a space station, but her predecessor is, what did they call it? An imago? And it is the implanted integrated memory of one's predecessor. So in her brain, she's got the memory of the person who did the job before her. And so that just like seemed a bit weird because we get like his voice as well in it. So I thought I'd give that a go. We Are All Birds of Uganda by Hafsa Zayan. So this, I think, is told in two timelines, 1960s Uganda and present-day London. The first chapter is told from present-day London, following a character who is a lawyer, and we see him in the workplace, sort of being overworked, being up all hours. It just, yeah, I quite like that first chapter, so I will give that a go. And the final one on the pile of books that are being kept is Dubliners by James Joyce. This is a short story collection. So I read the first story, which is called The Sisters, and it's about this priest who is dying, and it was a little bit odd. And you know, sometimes when you read something, you're like, I'm not entirely sure I get it, but I quite like it. And that was how I felt about that. So yeah, I mean, I'm as surprised as anyone else that I'm saying I'm keeping the James Joyce, but I'm keeping the James Joyce. So those are the ones that I'm keeping. Let me move the pile and I'll show you the ones I'm getting rid of. Okay, so the ones that I am getting rid of, we have The World of Tim Fraser by Frances Durbridge. I think there was a Frances Durbridge book in the first batch of books that I was getting rid of. I'm getting rid of this as well. This is like an espionage thriller, which is not really my thing. The Fourth Side of the Triangle by Ellery Queen. I've never read anything by Ellery Queen before. This one, the first chapter just wasn't interesting at all. Didn't do anything for me, and I don't really like, there's a weird like leather effect on the cover of this book which I quite dislike. The Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels. So I couldn't really try a chapter, because like over half the book is introduction, and then we have like the manifesto itself. So I just sort of like skimmed through, but I've decided I'm not going to read this. Rabbit Run by John Updike. This is the first in a series of books about this basketball player. I found it kind of dull. The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. Yeah, just like a bit, just not really interesting, to be honest. The Ghost Factory by Jenny McCartney. This is set in Belfast, and I think it's about the Troubles, but the first chapter just really didn't do anything for me again. The Monk by Matthew Lewis. So this is a book that was first published, I think, in the late 1700s. It's a Gothic novel, and it, I think, was quite controversial at the time because of its themes. The first chapter I just found like a bit too dense, a bit too, like a difficult classic to read, and I just wasn't. Plus, I was in two minds about this one anyway because of, well, I think it's sort of meant to be kind of disturbing, and also this cover I really dislike, so that can go. Everything You Know by Zoe Heller. I picked this one up free because I really like Zoe Heller's Notes on a Scandal, but this one was just, this was a predecessor to that. This one was just a bit boring, about this man in hospital who's sort of having family problems. Yeah, nothing interesting. Memorations by Robert Locke. This is a kind of a weird one. So it's set somewhere at the seaside. I can't remember where. And it follows a memoration of, is it starlings? So I think the idea is this memoration views and gives commentary on different characters who are in this location over a long period of time, like over decades, which is kind of maybe an interesting concept, but also a little bit cringe, and I didn't really like it. Unholy Murder by Linda LaPlante. I've read one Linda LaPlante before. I read it for my book club. I thought it was okay, but I'm not a super fan of like police procedurals, apart from I mean, even Agatha Christie aren't really proper police procedurals, are they? Yeah, I'm not really a fan of police procedurals, so that can go. Fatherland by Robert Harris. This is an alternate history, imagining if Hitler had won the war, which I think is an interesting concept, but I'm not really big on war fiction, really. So no, not for me. We have more to go. Somersault by Kenzaburo, and I don't know how you pronounce his surname, it's spelled O-E, who apparently won the Nobel Prize for Literature. This is a Japanese novel about, and it's massive, I think about two men who have founded a religious movement / cult. The writing in this is absolutely tiny, like really, really small, so I could not read that. Similarly, we have The Ancient Garden by Hwang Sok Yong, who is a Korean author. Massive book, really small font, so I'm not going to read that. The Neighbourhood by Mario Vargas Llosa, who is, I think, from Peru. Yeah, Peru. I did have to book by this author in April, and I think I don't quite like how the author writes women. At the Edge of the Orchard by Tracy Chevalier. I've never read anything by Tracy Chevalier, and I thought this was pretty dull. Those Who Are Loved by Victoria Hislop. Yeah, pretty dull, pretty forgettable first chapter, to be honest. We have The Necessary Deaths of Lewis Winter, Malcolm Mackey. The tagline, "It's hard to kill a man well." This is too, like, gangy, guns, thrillery action for me. Invisible Murder by Lena Carbabol and Agneta Fries. This is a Danish novel, I think. Yes, it is. It's Danish. I was in two minds about this one, but I think it is too far on the sort of hard-boiled, gritty underworld side of crime fiction for my taste, really. Just a couple left now. We have Amongst Women by John McGahern, about a man and his daughters. I just didn't find the first chapter interesting. And then the final one is Mammon in Malmo, which is a Swedish crime novel. Mammon means riches or wealth regarded as a source of evil and corruption. Yeah, the first chapter didn't really interest me, and it's, I think, too far into the, like, hard-boiled political underworld type thing. Also, this is like the 8th in a series, so yeah, I'm just not fussed about that. So out of those final 34, I am getting rid of 20 and keeping 14. So my overall figures are, I am keeping 31, getting rid of 36. So I'm getting rid of around 46% of those 67 books, which is pretty good going. I am really, really pleased with that. So yeah, that's gone really well. I don't know why I didn't do this sooner. Honestly, I would recommend you to do this yourself if you are having the same issues, looking at your TBR and wondering if you are still interested in reading them. This was so worthwhile. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to organise the books I'm keeping, put them in some order on the bookshelf, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I have organised my bookshelves somewhat. So let me tell you what we've got. So there is a vague order to some of this. Here on the top shelf we have a little bit of, where are we? A little bit of crime fiction. There is a proper crime shelf further down, but a little bit of crime fiction. 3 books in French, don't know if I'll ever read them. Some books I've bought more recently. And then we have the only 2 non-fiction on my TBR, which are there. Coming down to short story land. So up to here are the short story collections. Some of them are anthologies of different authors. Some of them are sort of by one author in particular. So we've got Alice Munro, Shirley Jackson, Camilla Gradova, and then a few random bits on the end. So we've got The Anomaly, which is a bit of a horror, 2 books that I want to reread soon, and just a random fiction book at the end. And then coming down here, we've got classics. So there's a couple of cloth bounds there. We've got Little Women and a little Shirley Jackson. Then we've got all these British, what are they called, English library editions. A couple of Persephones and a little set of Pan Macmillans. This is Murder Shelf. Let me just bend down. So all the British Library crime classics, which are on my TBR. Some of the crime fiction, Patricia Highsmith, 2 Japanese crime novels. This one, The Tattoo Murder, I asked for not last Christmas, the Christmas before. Still have not read it. Knick-knack shelf. Here is sort of mostly sci-fi, fantasy, speculative. On the end, we've got a little bit of like crime thrillery overspill. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, will I ever read it? Hopefully one day. Then over onto this bookshelf here. What should we do first? Let's do this shelf first. So I think the remaining translated stuff is on this shelf. So some of the like crime was translated, so I've put it over there. But here we've got translated from here up till about here, I think. We also have my nice copy of Anne of Green Gables, which is living there. And then towards the end, we've got some more sort of fiction from around the world, but it's not translated. We've got a copy of Pedro Paramo, which is in Spanish. And then a couple of hardbacks on the end. And then this shelf here is sort of everything else, really. So like this little section here is mostly sort of more classic stuff, a couple of Toni Morrisons. And then this is sort of just random sort of general fiction. I've still got The Unconsoled, which I've had for 10 years, need to read. Yeah, so there we are. So I am pretty pleased with that. Let me see what it looks like. So I'm really, really pleased with that. Let me know what you think. And let me know if your prediction was right in terms of how many I was going to get rid of. Okay, so that actually was a whole set of books I forgot about. This set here, which is like sort of a classic mystery type selection. So we've got some Sherlock Holmes, Edgar Allan Poe, Phantom of the Opera and Dorian Gray, and then a couple I haven't read, so Crime and Punishment and The Moonstone. I would quite like to read The Moonstone maybe later this year. So that has taken up a little bit more space, but I think that's still looking pretty decent. Okay, this really is bye. Bye.